Hello from Jonathan and me, welcome to the programme.
First tonight, well over 1,000 people may have died unnecessarily because of failures in care at 3 Essex hospitals.
The Patients Association is calling for radical changes at Basildon and Thurrock hospitals, and today it's emerged that the chairman of Colchester Hospital has also been sacked.
At Basildon and Thurrock, 1,500 more people than expected died in the last 4 years.
The Care Quality Commission's damning report listed blood-spattered wards, mouldy utensils and out-of-date equipment.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Colchester Hospital University NHS Foundation Trust has been sacked after an unusually high number of deaths there as well.
And it's from Colchester that Victoria Webb joins us now. Victoria, has there been any more information about why the chairman stepped down?
Well, the regulator monitor held 9 months of formal discussions with the trust. They'd failed to meet a number of targets, and as you said, they had a higher death rate than the national average. In 2008 to 2009, there were 112 deaths compared to the national average of 100. Now, they did say some progress had been made over the last 6 months, but the performance was still fragile, and the quickest way to turn things around was a change in board leadership. Jill Flack's disabled son died a wholly unnecessary death at Basildon Hospital. Carl was blind, deaf and suffered with cerebral palsy. Staff were aware that in the past a patient's head had become stuck between the bars on a bed, but that information hadn't been passed on. When it happened to Carl, he didn't survive.
The inquest has been done, Kyle's had his funeral, life is supposed to move on. For me and my family, it will never move on. If he hadn't been admitted to that hospital, he would be alive. He wasn't in for a life-threatening illness or condition. He had complex needs which weren't addressed.
Health services at both Basildon and Thurrock hospitals have an official NHS rating of good, but a spot check in October found blood stains on floors, blood-splattered equipment and badly soiled mattresses in A&E. Equipment in the resuscitation room was past its use-by date, and the trust had an unusually high death rate.
10-hour waits in A&E, no paediatric care for children, the infection rates rising, and even worse, people dying unnecessarily because of the neglect, both at board level and ward level. It is a disgrace.
It's not the first time the hospital has been criticised. In 2001, Basildon Hospital was so short of beds, the Royal College of Nursing described it as third world. 3 years later, the trust was fined for failing to control a Legionnaires' outbreak. In 2007, the trust admitted being at fault for leaving a child disabled after she was starved of oxygen during her birth in 2001. Last year, more than 200 new mothers were offered HIV tests after a member of staff was found to have the virus. And in April this year, an investigation was launched after drip bags were found to have been sabotaged.
I'd like to assure local people and our patients in the hospital now that the standards that the Care Quality Commission found last month have been put right. The unacceptable cleaning standards have been addressed, and the hospital is clean now as the rest of the hospital was at the time that this visit occurred.
But the problems appear to be more widespread. In Colchester, the chairman of that hospital has been forced to resign over concerns for patient safety, waiting times, cancer treatment and the 12% higher than expected death rate. The chairman, Richard Bourne, is refusing to go quietly. In an email, he's quoted as saying the process had been disproportionate and grossly unfair, and we're likely to make a formal legal challenge. 3-month-old Freddie Scott is currently having treatment at Colchester General, and his parents can't fault the service they've received.
I think it's absolutely fantastic, and the staff have been brilliant. The hospital's very clean. I can't sing its praises enough, to be honest.
Tonight, the Tories have accused the government of being complacent. Meanwhile, the Care Quality Commission says its inspectors will be back at all 3 hospitals to make sure patients are getting the care they deserve.
Well, let's head back to Victoria now. Victoria, in your report we heard from the Chief Executive of Basildon and Thurrock. Have we actually heard anything from the former chairman of Colchester now?
Well, yes, in a statement, Richard Bourne said that the trust had experienced significant problems earlier this year, but he felt that they'd made some real improvements. He also acknowledged that Monitor hadn't pointed out that they hadn't had any significant issues with regards to cleanliness, hygiene, infection control and indeed finance. And he said he was shocked by the Monitor Board's decision.
And of course, Victoria, I mean, these are hospitals with a foundation trust status. Could they be stripped of that?
Well, foundation status is a marker of excellence. It allows NHS organisations greater financial freedom and control over their own affairs. The government does now have the power to take those failing foundation trust hospitals back into NHS management if it wants to. Now, tonight the government has told the health regulator to see if any hospitals require immediate intervention, and the Health Secretary, Andy Burnham, has said that patient safety is absolutely paramount.
Victoria, for now, thank you very much. Well, next, the family looking for answers after their teenage son was killed by a paranoid schizophrenic who'd been released from hospital just days earlier.
19-year-old Boris Reevy from Bedford died in an unprovoked attack in the town last October.
Today, his killer, 52-year-old Milton Downer, was sent to a secure psychiatric unit indefinitely. Matthew Hudson has this report.
CCTV pictures of Boris Reevy in a bookmaker's on the day he died. The 19-year-old was later seen drunk and vulnerable in Bedford's Alexandra Road. Minutes later, he was dying, stabbed once through the heart. His killer was 52-year-old Milton Downer, a paranoid schizophrenic with a history of violence who used crack cocaine, cannabis and alcohol.
On the 28th of October last year, Downer's neighbours called the police because he was throwing items, including a stereo and an ironing board, out of his flat window, which was on the 6th floor. Taken to hospital, he exhibited bizarre and violent behaviour. He told his psychiatrist, "I'm waiting to kill someone, I'm Nelson Mandela, I'm Jesus." He was released from hospital 2 weeks later. 3 days after that, he killed Boris Reevy.
After the unprovoked attack, Boris staggered to the nearby studio club. Staff, then paramedics, tried unsuccessfully to save him. 3 days later, Boris's girlfriend discovered she was expecting his baby. The little girl, who's now 5 months old, will never meet her dad. Downer was arrested 4 days after the attack. He later admitted manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Boris's family want to know why he'd been released.
Naturally, I'm outraged about it. Obviously, questions have to be answered. If he wasn't out there, my son would still be alive. His daughter would have a dad. My granddaughter Elise. It's just tragic.
The mental health trust involved told us an independent inquiry was due to begin and declined to comment further. It's the same trust which lost touch with schizophrenic Tennyson Obi before he murdered PC John Henry in Luton in June 2007. At his trial, the jury heard he had failed to cooperate and went off the radar. Police say Downer lied to them and was initially granted bail.
When he was rearrested, thankfully, because of the local community coming forward and giving us the evidence that we needed to charge him, he again lied then.
Sending Downer to a secure psychiatric hospital, the judge told the court he had considerable sympathy with the family's views that he should never have been released from his previous stay in hospital. Matthew Hudson, Anglia News at Luton Crown Court.
Now tonight, airmen from RAF Wittering will fly out to begin a 6-month tour in Afghanistan.
They've spent the day making last-minute preparations and were treated to a visit from their force's sweetheart, Susie Hudson from Peterborough. Claire McGlasson reports.
The call to arms. Airmen from RAF Wittering are preparing to fly out to fight. They've got their kit bags, their papers, and their own model mascot. Yes, in 2009, the regiment has got its own forces sweetheart. The face of modern warfare has certainly changed.
I'm the new Vera Lynn. I love it, yeah. I think they need to have one. They need the morale boost, yeah. The things that they see and do and go through, the guys who are injured, I think they need something to know that someone's there to give them a bit of a boost.
And their job will be tough.
More than 100 airmen from RAF Wittering will be flying out to Helmand province. They are tasked with protecting Camp Bastion and all the people within it.
Not only are we protecting all the people within the camp, but also all the aircraft that are coming in and out of that camp as well. So absolutely a privilege, but a big responsibility.
It's a dangerous job. In 2008, they lost 2 of the regiment during a tour to Afghanistan. This time, they'll be away for 6 months, which means they'll be away for Christmas.
It's going to be hard for families back at home, especially like people who've got like newborn babies and stuff like that, like kids and stuff.
Well, I had a big send-off with my mates and my family. got out of buying everyone presents, so it's a winner.
The first wave will fly out in the early hours of tomorrow morning, preparing for Christmas on camp. Claire McGlasson, Anglia News, RAF Wittering.
Well, it's 11 minutes past 6. Do stay